I used to work on the hidden web. I won't get into how I came into this line of work. My job simply consisted of tracking down people I was paid to find, taking them, and bringing them to a specific location. I never concerned myself with what would happen to those people afterwards, but from what I understood, they were usually traded away or held for ransom. After years of doing this kind of work, I eventually became desensitized to it. To me, it was just another day at the office. The only difference was that this paid much better. I should also point out that I didn't work alone. I had a partner that helped me. For the sake of this story, I'll call him Sam. Sam and I met through the hidden web forums about 3 months after I started my work. He was much more experienced in taking people from the hidden web than I was, having done it for several years. But as he was getting older, he realized the job was too difficult to do on his own anymore. After talking for a while, we eventually agreed to work together. I would help him perform the tasks that were more difficult for him to do due to his age, and he would guide me along, as well as bring me along on more difficult, high-paying jobs to reduce the risk of me screwing them up. After meeting, we quickly realized that we were a good match. It only took a few weeks to get into a groove. We had been contacted by employers via the forums, given a target, as well as any other important information that would be crucial for the task. Sam and I would then drive his van to the location to scope it out. We would spend whatever time we had getting any information our employer left out, such as schedules and patterns. Then, we would decide on a date, time, and location, and then secure our target and bring them to a specified drop point given to us by our employer. We would be paid, and then move on to the next job. We did our job like clockwork. As horrible of a job as it was, we were really good at it. We eventually got to the point where we could secure a target within a matter of days. We soon were able to live comfortably. Of course, we weren't stupid enough to grow complacent. After all, the hidden web is a dangerous place for anyone who isn't careful. We were living smoothly, not really caring about the people we were hurting to do so. All we cared about was our fat wallets and nice homes. But then one day, everything came crashing down around us. Sam and I had been sent a job by an unnamed employer. They had instructed us to secure a 19-year-old man who lived in a wealthy neighborhood. This wasn't very abnormal for us. Plenty of previous employers sent us to secure wealthy targets, usually to ransom off. What was abnormal were the set of rules that they'd given us. They told us that the target had no security system in his home, but we were not taking this for granted. We were to practice extreme caution and vigilance when securing the target, and we were to consider him extremely dangerous. Finally, the strangest instruction they gave us was that we were to administer carfentanil or a similar drug via tranquilizer darts before securing. It wasn't the fact that our employer wanted us to tranquilize our target that was strange. We had done it to plenty of previous targets before. What was strange was that they specifically requested we use carfentanil. That was the type of tranquilizer they used on elephants. Even a single dart of this stuff would be enough to kill a human. Let me make it clear that we were not hitmen. Sam and I had never killed anyone in our lives, before or after taking on this line of work. We knew there was no way we could use this stuff to take our target alive. We just assumed our employer didn't really know much about tranquilizers and just wanted to sound smart by including a specific kind. I really wish we would have just listened to their instructions. We started studying our target the day after we had received our instructions. The boy was a recluse to say the least. From what we could tell, he lived in his parents' house, and they were almost never home. He spent pretty much every day indoors, doing whatever he wanted to pass the time. Reading and playing video games, watching TV, typical teenager stuff. For the life of us, Sam and I couldn't find a single reason to consider this kid intimidating, let alone dangerous. He seemed to live an extremely sheltered life, and had more than likely never been in a fight before. But we had a job to do, and we had to follow the rules we were given the best that we could. On the night we went to extract, we parked our van just outside the kid's home. Nobody else in the neighborhood was awake, so it would be relatively simple to pull him out once we got him. Sam sat up in front, while I laid in the back of the van, aiming the tranquilizer rifle through the back doors. The way the van was parked gave me a perfect vantage point to the kid's house. Also, in case you were wondering, I wasn't using carfentanil, opting to use a weaker drug that wouldn't kill a human being. I wasn't concerned about our employer being upset their instructions weren't followed exactly. Unless they were planning on testing the kid's blood when they got him, there wasn't any way that they would know. After 30 minutes of waiting, the kid appeared in the kitchen window. We weren't too far away, so the amount of detail I could see through was very high. He had a mop of wavy blonde hair, a splash of freckles on his nose and cheeks, and piercing emerald eyes. He was pouring himself a glass of water when I tagged him. His reaction was surprisingly tame. He jumped from surprise as the dart entered his neck, but he didn't scream. When he pulled it out, he didn't look scared or confused. If anything, he only looked annoyed, as if he had just swatted a mosquito that had landed on him. And then he turned his head and looked right at me. I had been doing this job for about 4 years at this point, and I had seen some freaky stuff. Sure, most of it was when I was browsing the hidden web, but nevertheless, there was almost nothing that scared me. The look this kid gave me freaked me out. It's hard to describe exactly what his expression was as his eyes burned into me, but the best way I could describe it was an expression that said, "I dare you to come for me. You won't like what'll happen if you do." After that, the kid turned off the kitchen light and walked out of view. The van shook as Sam opened the door and hopped out, walking around to me. He had a body bag in one hand and a flashlight in the other. "Alright, partner, you ready to go do this?" he said calmly. I don't know if he saw the kid's expression or not, but if he did, he wasn't showing it. Yeah, let's go," I said, packing away the rifle and grabbing my own flashlight. "Christ, this is a nice house," Sam said absent-mindedly. "This is one lucky kid. I know it's not what we normally do, but maybe we could rob the place while we're here, yeah?" I didn't respond as we walked towards the house. I picked the lock to the back door and we stepped in quietly. All the lights were off and the place was dead silent. First, we went to the kitchen. We both knew the kid probably wouldn't be there. The tranquilizers take a while to kick in, and if he had walked away after getting tagged, he'd probably be somewhere else in the house. We were right. The kitchen was empty, without any dishes or food on the counters, save for a half-full glass of water. We continued searching the house, but it became quickly apparent that something was wrong. No matter how hard we looked, we couldn't find the kid anywhere. He should have fallen unconscious by now, the tranquilizer having long since taken effect, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Are you sure you hit the dang kid?" Sam hissed at me after several minutes of fruitless searching. "I swear if you screw up this job because of crappy aim, I'm gonna kill you." "I know I hit him," I snapped. "I even saw him pull the dart out." "Well then where the heck is he?" Sam asked. "He couldn't have gotten far, not with that tranquilizer in him." Our argument was cut short by a noise coming from the other side of the house. It sounded like multiple thuds in quick succession, like someone was loudly stomping around. The noise continued for a minute, moving around the house before finally stopping. Sam and I quickly split up to investigate. We weren't sure about where the noise was coming from, and we didn't want to risk our target getting away. I walked back through the kitchen to the living room. I was about to make a move onto the next room when something caught my eye. On the floor was a pile of fabric. When I looked closer, I found that it was a pile of clothes. I recognized it as the clothes the kid was wearing. By the looks of it, he had stripped completely naked and left his clothes here. I had no idea why he did this. Stripping naked didn't really give you a tactical advantage when trying to escape a kidnapping. At least not one that I could think of. Taking off your shoes can make your footsteps quieter, but taking off all of your clothing wasn't really necessary. I was trying to think of a good reason for the kid stripping when my thoughts were interrupted by a blood-curdling scream coming from the other end of the house. I instantly recognized the voice as Sam's. I ran as fast as I could to where the scream came from. When I got there, Sam was lying on the ground in the hallway. From where I was standing, I couldn't see any more than his upper torso, arms, and head. He was clinging to the wall for dear life, while something in the hallway that I couldn't see pulled and wrenched at his legs. Whatever it was strong and determined to pull Sam loose. I bolted forward, desperately trying to help my partner get free. I didn't even make it halfway before Sam lost his grip and was pulled out of sight. He was screaming and crying, begging me to save him. When I rounded the corner, whoever had him was pulling him through the basement door. I only saw Sam for a split second before he was pulled down the stairs to the basement. I ran to the door, flicking the light switch on. Nothing happened. Someone had shut off the power to the house. I was caught between praying that this thing was alone and praying that it wasn't. If it was alone, that meant that we wouldn't have to deal with anybody or anything else. But that would also mean that it was smart enough to know to shut the power off in order to get the upper hand. I was shaken from my thoughts by the realization that Sam had stopped screaming. I seriously considered making a break for it and leaving him behind. It was easy to assume that he was dead, but even horrible people can make friends, and as much as I wanted to deny it, I had formed a bond with Sam over the years of working with him. I couldn't bring myself to leave him behind. So, scolding myself for being stupid, I made my way down the stairs. When I got to the bottom, I expected the basement to be silent. Instead, I heard a distinct crunching noise coming from the other end of the room. I tried to discern what the noise was by sound alone, but the adrenaline pumping through me made it hard to focus. With trembling hands, I clicked on my flashlight and aimed it towards the noise. I spent every day wishing that I had never done that. A gangly creature was hanging from an exposed bar jutting from the ceiling of the basement. It appeared human, but only barely. Its arms were too long, with nails like claws. Its legs and feet had too many joints, which allowed it to hang upside down from the ceiling like a bat. It seemed to have skin that didn't fit its own skeleton, with some areas being stretched thin while others were bunched up. As for the crunching noise, I found out quickly where it came from. Sam hung limply from the creature's grip. He was clearly dead, with large chunks of his flesh missing. Every few moments, the creature would pull Sam's body up towards its mouth and take a large bite out of him, tearing the flesh away and chewing loudly. It didn't seem to be picky either. It ate whatever part its mouth found, including bone. Once it realized it had a flashlight trained in it, it stopped eating Sam's corpse and looked up at me. Its face was a bloody mess. The features of its face were twisted horribly. Its jaw was so wide open, I thought it was disconnected from its skull, and its eyes lacked any sense of humanity. This thing was a monster, and I knew it would kill me without hesitation if it got the chance. I was frozen by fear, staring at this thing, when recognition suddenly struck me. The monster had horrifying features, but the blonde hair, freckles, and green eyes made everything fall into place. This thing was our target. It was the kid that we had been sent here to capture. His features may have been mangled and warped, but there was no denying that this monstrosity was him. I understood why the tranquilizer didn't work, and why our employer instructed us to use the drugs that they had wanted. Why they would want this thing alive is beyond me. I would sleep much better at night if I knew this thing was in a deep, deep grave. After what seemed like hours of unbroken eye contact, the monster screeched at me. That was enough to send me sprinting up the stairs. I didn't stop running, didn't turn around to see if this thing was chasing me. I kept running until I got to the van, jumped in the driver's seat, and peeled off into the street. I went several miles over the speed limit, but I didn't care. I wouldn't feel safe until I was miles away from that beast. After skipping town, I emptied my savings account and liquidized everything I owned. After that, I went through an extensive process to erase any lingering trails. I changed my name, underwent plastic surgery, and whatever little presence I had on the web, I thoroughly scrubbed clean. Any evidence of the man I was before was completely gone by the time that I had finished. As far as anyone was concerned, I never existed until 2 months ago. I had made a promise to myself to never bring up what I saw, to bury the past as deep as it would go. But I have been plagued by nightmares ever since seeing that monster, and I thought that maybe if I warned the world of its existence, my conscience might be alleviated. I can't go into detail about where this beast is located. It's better for everyone if that is kept a secret. As for whoever it was that wanted to capture the beast, I haven't heard from them since. In all honesty, I'm actually glad we didn't succeed in capturing it. I don't want to find out what their plans for the monster were when they got it. So, take this as a warning. People say that the hidden web is full of monsters. I learned the hard way that sometimes that can be taken literally. I know you're frowning. The title is weird, I know. But if you could just give me a moment, I'll explain. I'll have to be fast though. I don't know how close they are. Essentially, I ordered myself on the dark web. I'm a drug user, I'll admit it. Weed is my usual go-to, but I buy that off my friend. If, however, I want to get something a little heavier, like acid or coke, I'll just order it off the dark web. It's surprisingly simple. A few clicks, some Bitcoin transfers, and then boom, I have acid in my P.O. box. But I'm also a curious guy. The dark web has always intrigued me. Up until a few days ago. I'd only been on there to buy drugs off sites some of my friends had gave to me. But late one night, I was sober at home, which was a rare thing for me. So, since I was bored, I decided to boot up my Tor browser and try and see what sort of messed up stuff I could find on the dark web. If you've ever been on the dark web, you'll know that you just can't search for red rooms or hitman for hire and get results. No, you have to find links to these websites first. So, I hopped back onto Google again to try and find some links to a messed up website. I know it's weird that I was actively searching for the worst, but as soon as I got on the dark web that night, a sense of morbid curiosity overcame me. Anyway, I spent a little while trying to find some links. Anything that I found though was either too tame for me, or the links didn't work. At this point, I was about ready to give up, and I wish I had. But in one final attempt, I clicked on Reddit, hopping onto r/deepweb. I didn't think I would find anything, and so I just scrolled through hot for about half an hour before sorting my new. And then I found it. One simple text post titled, Slayer's Assassination and Life Ruining Services. In the text box in the post was what seemed to be just a random assortment of numbers and letters. It took my tired brain a second to figure out what it was, but I realized pretty quickly. It was a link, presumably to a hitman website. And so, I decided to paste the link into my dark web browser, and what do you know, it worked. But before I decided to go any further, I figured I should go back to the OP's profile to see if they had posted any other dark web links. However, when I went back to the post in question, OP's profile was deleted. Weird. Anyway, I reopened my dark web tab and I hopped onto the site. Up along the top of the website was its name, Slayer's Assassination and Life Ruining Services. And next to it, what looked like to be a skull inside of a crosshair. I chuckled when I saw that. The site must be fake. Upon scrolling down, however, I was not disappointed. There was a paragraph of white text on a black background, and a small box to the right of the text that just said, Place an order. The text was the main part though, as it took up most of the page. It read, Slayer's Assassinations and Life Ruining Services offers everything from acid attack, crippling, blinding, castration, torture, beatings, and a good old death. We have the lowest prices out of any other company running similar services, and we are worldwide. We have a dedicated and experienced group of staff based all over the world. So if you need someone to be assassinated, or maybe you just want them scarred for life, don't hesitate to contact us. Again, I laughed. This had to be satire, right? Hell, I was even tempted to order it on someone just to see what would happen. Ironically, I actually have a half-decent job, so I could afford it too. Better not risk it though, I thought to myself. I was about to close my computer and call it a night when I heard a knock at the door. I live alone, so it was unusual to get visitors, especially this late at night. But when I opened my door, it was just my good buddy Mark, who happened to be my weed plug. As I opened the door, he didn't hesitate to let himself in, and shove a big baggie full of pot into my face. This dude is the best shit I've had in a minute. We gotta try some. I couldn't say no. Cut to a couple hours later. It's early morning and Mark and I are chilling on my couch, both blazed as hell. He suddenly decides to get up, and I assume he's going to get some leftover pizza, but he walks over to my desk and computer. Slayer's assassinations. Are you gonna kill someone or something? He mutters. What? I reply. Your computer, dude. It's got some hacker shit on it. It's the dark web, man. Don't mess with it. At this point, I'm still on my couch, half asleep and not paying full attention. However, I sat up pretty fast when he said the words. Hey man, let's order a hitman on you. I hopped up and I walked over to my PC. Part of my brain was screaming no. What the hell are you doing? But the majority of my brain, which was also the high part, was thinking about how funny it would be to order a hitman on myself. And so I agreed. I did make him get out of my chair though, because I didn't want him seeing what my credit card numbers were as I transferred some Bitcoin. At the end, after I wrote down all my personal details, like my address, age, and even a photo, I had to select what I wanted to happen to me. I just selected plain old assassination, as it was actually cheaper than some of the other things. I could have paid an extra couple grand to be beaten before my death, but even my high brain didn't want to splash the cash too much on my own death. God, this was ridiculous. Anyway, I placed the order and then replied to a confirmation email, and boom, it was done. A couple of clicks and I had ordered myself on the dark web. Mark and I laughed about it for a while, but then he left about an hour later, and I fell asleep not too long after. I woke up around 9 a.m., which meant that I got at least 6 hours of sleep, even if it felt like I got 3. I got up and out of bed, threw on some track pants and a cotton shirt. Yes, I sleep naked. And I brewed myself a cup of coffee before sitting down to play some games and just enjoy my Sunday. You can imagine how shocked I was when I saw that I had ordered my own death the previous night. Even though I thought the site was bullshit, I still felt a pit open up in my stomach. Even when I'm high, I usually can make sensible decisions. I chuckled, not like I could remember it anyway. But I guess Mark's new shit really was good. I would assume a normal human being would do something else, but I was still kind of out of it from the night before, so I just carried on with my day. I was a little more paranoid, sure, but as I said, I just assumed it was bullshit. I even laughed at the email I got from the website, saying that their hitman had been dispatched and was on its way. It was like ordering a package off Amazon. I was tempted to email back and ask for same-day delivery, but I didn't need to ask, because that's exactly what I got. I didn't see it arrive, but around the time that I started to cook myself a shitty dinner, I noticed a blacked-out sedan parked on the other side of the road from my house. I didn't live in a rural area, but there is a lot of trees and bushes between each of the houses on my street, so I would be surprised if any other house saw the car except for me. At this point, I was freaking out. What if the site was real? Even though I'm a big guy, I was freaking out. I don't own any weapons, aside from a slightly larger than average kitchen knife. Screw it, I'm confronting it, I decided. I put on a hoodie and slid the knife into the front pocket, before waltzing out of my house and walking right up to the driver's side window of the vehicle. Even I was astonished at my own courage. Knocking on the window, nothing happened. It was rather anticlimactic. I was fully prepared to have to fight for my life, all because I did something really dumb while I was baked. But like I said, nothing happened. I even put my head right up to the window, as if there was a reflection, to try and get a better look to see what's inside. I could barely see what was inside of the car, but all I could make out were 2 empty seats. No one was even inside. I had got all hyped up for nothing. I decided to wait out by the car for a bit, but after half an hour or so, I was hungry, so I go back inside to take my dinner out of the oven. I swear that it was only a minute between me going inside to take my dinner out of the oven and looking back out of the window and the car being gone. I didn't even hear it go. Guess I'm eating my dinner with all my curtains closed and my doors locked, I muttered to myself. I had just started to calm down when the power shut off. It was sunny outside, and coupled with the car, I now knew that this was the real deal. I had signed my own death warrant. I ran into my upstairs bedroom and I locked the door, and then I hid under the bed. I couldn't call the cops. What would I say? Oh yes, hello sir. Turns out while I was super high, I paid $5,000 for some anonymous hitman to kill me, and now he's arrived. Send an officer ASAP, please and thank you. So I just stayed hiding under my bed, and I still am now. I've been here for an hour now writing this, thinking this as my epitaph. I know I'm screwed. Just a minute ago, I heard my back door slowly creak open. And this piece of writing may seem humorous to you, the reader, but in reality, as you read this, I'm under my bed praying to a God that lost all faith in me years ago to spare me, to let me go. I know that won't happen. My bedroom door just opened, and I can see a big pair of black boots. When I heard that my childhood house was being auctioned, I never thought I would miss it or want it to myself, but it turns out that I did. My family used to be terribly poor and my only older sister Susan and I were left. Despite being 10 years older than me, she was still struggling financially, so me buying it seemed like the only rational choice. The house was cheap and I was planning to move there for a while, and buy myself a second house and then move to the other place and make renovations in this one, so I could eventually rent it out to someone else. I'm not sentimental enough to live here for the rest of my life. I just wanted to know that it was still there and not demolished. The idea of giving new life to it so another family could create new memories there made me happy. I had a difficult childhood. It was only me, my mother, and my sister. Susan was a lot older than me, so I saw her as a second motherly figure. A very cranky one at that. She was always annoyed at something, and despite always being in her room, she never seemed to get enough sleep. I consider myself successful and someone that earns a fair amount of money nowadays, and I'm very thrifty, so that's how I'm able to afford buying houses like that. The first day in my new old house was fine. After we had lived there, it actually had another owner that made a 2000 style renovation, so the house was in a good condition, despite being very outdated. During the night, I woke up feeling the bedroom was too hot, so I stretched my arms to reach the ceiling fan switch. That's when I noticed a very small handle on the wall above my head, around 30 centimeters above my mattress. Running my hand along the wall, I noticed a very tiny door, a door that has never been there, and I was sure of it. The bedroom used to be my mother's and she's never had a headboard. I didn't have one now either, and I knew this room like the back of my hand. I pushed the handle and I discovered that the door was unlocked. I heard soft panting. As soon as the door was open, something shuffled inside. I'm scared. It was a young girl's voice, maybe around 8 years old. Can I sleep with you? I agreed, too sleepy to even realize how weird it was. The door didn't lead to another room. but it was like a deep cupboard that could only fit a child in a sitting or crawling position. It probably had the size of a large safe box. I felt the tiny body moving and silently switching to the bed by my side, and I fell asleep immediately after that. By the time I had woken up, she was gone, and so was the small new door. But a faint shape in the sheets and warmth indicated that it was likely that somebody had actually been there. I don't have pets and my boyfriend doesn't live with me, so the only logical explanation was that I dreamt the child's existence. The room was very dark and I was too sleepy to open my eyes enough to try to see something. It felt very real, but it couldn't be true. I spent the whole day with a feeling of uneasiness and doubt in the pit of my stomach. I only felt calmer when, after I turned off the lights to go to sleep, I ran my hands through the wall and I found the tiny handle again. This time she didn't say a word. She just quietly leapt into my bed. The weird peace that washed through me as I realized she wasn't a dream immediately put me to sleep. For the next night, we had the same ritual. I opened the door that only showed up during the darkest hours of the night. The child snuggled up into my spare blanket and we both slept like angels. I would only wake up by the morning when she was invariably already gone. The bed always had lingering warmth and slightly messy sheets. I never questioned this. We pretty much never talked, and it didn't feel necessary. Being the daughter of a mother that worked very long shifts and was barely seen around the house, I found this habit quite peaceful. When I was a kid for a while, I used to sneak into my mother's bedroom and quietly go to sleep with her pretty much every night. Not because I was scared, but because I missed her so much, and I knew how tired she was. It was the only moment that we could be together, and no one could imagine how much I cherished it. I did that for quite a long time, until my mother went missing and never came back. Susan was already a legal adult and took care of me the best that she could. I tried so hard to become a big girl, be a good student, and look after myself without help. I hated bothering my sister. She was never mean to me, but even being so young, I knew she probably had a lot on her plate. I couldn't burden her even more. I grew to look forward to my strange encounters with the child that only appeared in the dark. "Can I bring my plush rabbit too?" the girl asked me one night. "Sure, sweetie," I replied. All of our brief conversations were along those lines. I called this girl my tiny ghost. She was probably the ghost of some poor child that Mr. Parenton was too scared to move to the other side. I didn't know what to tell her, but I was glad to at least bring her some comfort. My everyday life stayed the same. I went to work, to the gym, to my boyfriend's house, but never slept there, and I had the occasional drink with my friends. Every night I was there for this girl. It didn't cost me anything, but it seemed to make her happy. She was such a good girl, always quiet and respectful of my space. It was never my wish to be a mother, but it really made me think that maybe I'd be good at it. I fully believed in the paranormal, so I never once questioned my sanity. Sometimes I asked myself what would happen if I woke up in the middle of the night and she was still there. Or what would happen if I turned on the lights, but I was too afraid to find out. Maybe it would make her leave forever, not to move on but to suffer. Maybe she would be covered in nasty scars, missing an eye or showing raw flesh in her fragile body. I didn't want that. I wanted to keep this child in my mind as a warm memory. Besides, like magic, whenever she was there I felt groggy and sleepy until after the sun was out. This went on for a long time before I found the perfect house for myself. The negotiations went smoothly, and after finishing the paperwork, I decided to move my stuff little by little. It would give me the opportunity to enjoy a few more days in my inexplicably nostalgic home. I was too tired after a long day of carrying a few boxes, so I ended up staying the night at my new place. This was the first time I didn't sleep in my mother's old room since I had bought my childhood home. And it felt really strange not to open a door in the darkness and have a mysterious but lovely little thing falling asleep beside me. I had supposed that maybe the girl could go wherever I was, as long as I was alone in bed, since she was a ghost. But my theory was wrong. "You didn't come last night," the girl stated. She sounded brokenhearted, but trying to hide it. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. I'm here now." It's okay, she whispered, and snuggled in the bed like usual. After confirming that she couldn't follow me to other places, my curiosity about the tiny door that only showed up at night reemerged, and it wasn't long before it took the best of me. I decided to call my sister and maybe find out more about this house. "Susan, have you heard of the tiny door in Mother's bedroom? In the wall where the bed is." "What the hell, Katie?" Susan sounded shocked. "You know the wall is too thin for the other side, so there's no space to have a closet. You know that." "Sorry to ask," I muttered. "I know it will sound insane, but every night, a small girl comes from the small door that only appears when it's dark, and she asks to sleep with me in my bed." A long silence followed, and then Susan sighed. "Katie, can we meet? We need to talk." I was ready to see my sister snapping at me and calling me crazy, but Susan hugged me tighter than ever. She wasn't the type to show too much affection, let alone through touch. I was both happy and terrified. "You poor girl," she cooed, like I was 5 years old. But it felt nice to have her treat me this way. "Do you remember Mother's funeral?" "Yeah, you decided to hold it after she disappeared," I offered. "No, baby." The first wrinkles around Susan's eyes made her look wise and more amorous. "Mother didn't disappear. She died when you were 8. You blocked this painful memory and told yourself that she was just working too much. But every night she let me sleep with her, Susan." I shrieked, unaccepting of her answer. "Every night you went to her bedroom and asked to lie on the empty bed. You spent the whole time awake telling her about your day, whispering, because you said she was sleeping and couldn't be bothered. And then you got up before morning and went to sleep in your own bed. You have no idea how much it broke my heart. You believed that she was still there for months, and then probably started to remember what had happened. And your coping mechanism made you believe that she had disappeared." Susan said, "I'm so sorry that I didn't take better care of you, that I couldn't afford therapy for you. I was so tired of working 3 jobs to keep the house and just to feed us." Susan was the one working. I rarely saw her because she wasn't home. Mother wasn't there. She had been ill years before, but I truly remember her recovery. I remember so fondly the nights I spent in the safeness of my mother's bed. But it was just a delusion. And I'm so sorry that I bothered you. I was on the verge of crying too. You never bothered me. Sorry if I made you feel like you did. I'm incredibly proud the way that you turned out to be so successful. But I'm also crazy, I squeaked. I don't know how, Katie, Susan continued. But I don't believe you were hallucinating it anymore. There was actually somebody there with you. But this someone wasn't Mother or her ghost. It was your future self.